In this section, I'm going to introduce you how to provide value labels in SPSS file for data analysis use. I'm going to get into the virtual lab right now, and then here is the SPSS file spreadsheet that you're going to be working on. I'm going to use the Horizon data as an example. And for example, you're going to go to File, and you're going to go to Open Data. And I actually installed my data in the USB thumb drive. So this is where I'm going to go to get my data. And here's data, Horizon data. So I'm going to open the data. I'm going to work on the data. And in this SPSS file here, there are two windows. One is the variable view, and the other is the data view. So when the data view is yellow here, you would be able to see the actual data in rows and columns. So you would be able to see gender, the categories of each data set, and also you would be able to see the number of cases here, and you will see there are 98 cases here. So in this case, this is the row and column. But this data view really doesn't give you a lot of details for you to work on, but give you a specific data view in terms of which row and which column is what number. So if you wanted to work on the data set, you really wanted to go to the variable view. So if you click on the variable view here in SPSS underneath here, if the variable view is yellow, and the window is different now. So in here, you will have the names of the variables in this first column, and you will be able to see they are all numeric types, and they don't have any decimals here. If you click on here, you can see you can put 1 decimals, or you can put 2 decimals, and so on and so forth. So in this case, I'm just going to put, 1 decimal or 2 decimal as you wanted to, or 0 decimal at this point. This is really your own choice in terms of how accurate you want it to be. Usually for statistical analysis, people tend to use 2 decimals. So that's 2. And for label, you can pretty much put whatever you want to call that. So for example, sex, what does it mean for people when they read the word sex? You can give a little bit of explanation. You can say this means these are for students in Horizons students. You can say it's about students' gender, or gender of students, or student gender. So that would be the label. But for gender, when you go to the data view, you will be able to see for gender, you have this 1s and 2s. So what does 1 and 2 mean? Computer only knows the numbers, but when you analyze it, you wanted to know what is exactly 1 mean, what does exactly 2 mean. So in the variable view, for this kind of variables, these are called categorical variables, which means 1 and 2 does not necessarily have a true arithmetic meaning. They just mean more or less, but not in a arithmetic sense. So if we go to the data sheet I gave you in Springboard here, and in the data sheet I gave you here, student gender, male or female, 1 is male, 2 is female. So you need to label them accordingly in your worksheet. So you go back to the data view here. You tell the computer the value of the data view 1 equals male. So 1, you label them as male. You hit on add, and you label 2. In your data sheet you have 2. You label 2 as female, as the data sheet told you. So then you finish the labeling, assigning a value for these 2 categories of 1 and 2, and you say OK. You see the value has been changed. Instead of 9, it's been changed to 0, 1, and 2. So here you have 1 equals male and 2 equals female. Since you have 2 decimals, so you have 1.00, 2.00. So that's the labeling. And for your homework 1, you really need to practice labeling, assigning specific labels, correct labels to all the categorical variables. For example, we signed the categories of smokers. So what does smoker here mean? You can say it means a student smoking status. For example, that's what the smoker means. So that's a label, and then that's a description of smokers. And then you wanted to assign, because it's a categorical variable, again, 1 and 2, 1 does not necessarily mean is 1 point less than 2. It's just a name. So you have to tell what 1 means. You can say 1, the label of 1 is smoker. And 2 means non-smoker. It's a label for non-smoker. And if you say okay, so you see the label has been changed. And if you want to know whether this is correct or no, and you have to go back to the data sheet I gave you in the Springboard. For example, you go to smoking here. That's student smokes a cigarette. You see they are either smokers and non-smokers, and 1 is a smoker and 2 is a non-smoker. And that you know that you labeled the categories correctly. And you really need to provide a label for all the categorical variables. And you ask me, do I need to put a label for height? No, because height is not a categorical variable. For example, when you go to the data view height, the difference between number 1 and number 2, participants number 1 and number 2, number 1 is 62 inches, and number 2 is 67 inches. 67 is 5 inches taller than 62. It carries a specific arithmetic value. So these kind of variables are considered to be continuous variables or ratio variables, because the value carries arithmetic meaning of more or less, not like gender and smoking, that 1 does not necessarily mean 1 point less than 2. It's just a name. It's male and female. So that's why it's the difference between categorical variables and continuous ratio variables here. So for the ratio variables, you don't have a specific label to put in the variable view. So you really have to make sure to label them correctly according to the data sheet I gave you to finish your homework 1. Thank you.